Welcome back. Today we're going to tie Kelly Gallup's Heifer Groomer or Fathead, whichever name you decide to go with, or whichever one you like better. We're going to tie this one in gray today. This is one where you're not going to get a lot of depth on this one. It's essentially the articulated Zoo Cougar. The body's a little bit different, but the head is the same. It's a weightless fly. A lot of Marabou, you got the flank backs over the top, and then the deer hair head and collar. A lot of motion out of this one. It projects a very big profile with the Marabou and the flank back feathers. But like I said, you're not going to get a ton of depth out of this one. It's going to bring the fish to the fly as opposed to taking the fly to the fish, which you will do a lot with some of the jig patterns, some of the heavier ones, tungsten heads especially. They'll get some more depth, but this one's almost exclusively on a jerk strip retrieve. And Kelly says that he fishes this one a lot as a mouse pattern at night, which, I mean, you can see where it's, a lot of times at night what you're going to be fishing is the 1.5 to 3 foot water. That's the stuff that the big browns are going to be searching, and this is a perfect fly for that, because I mean, with the sinking line, probably a 250, 280 grain, you may get down, depending on how heavy of a current you're fishing, you may get down to that 12 to 18 inch range below the surface with this pattern. So without any further rambling, we'll go ahead and get started on this. This is an MFC 7050 size 4 in the back, and I'm going to stop the thread at the halfway point for this one. What we're going to go with, I don't know if I mentioned this or not, but we're going to tie this one in gray today. So we're going to start with some gray Plumes of Marabou for the back hook. Let's see here. I think I'll work with that one right there. I'm going to try and do this in 2, but it may take 3 when you're tying this, depending on how good the quality of the Marabou is for a Palmered wrap. So I'll show this one on the first one that I'm tying. What I do when I'm selecting these is this section back here, this butt section, typically winds up being really rigid and just not pliable whatsoever. If you take and try and tie that in, what's going to happen is this stem is going to crack and potentially unravel your entire Palmered wrap. So what I do is I grab it by the rigid section, and then right at the tip, or part way down, not at the tip, but I have this section, you can see how I have it in my hands right here, and I find that bend. You can see where that bend's starting right there. That's where I select my fibers from. I peel everything else back and then tie this section in. That way I know I have a good pliable piece to work with. It's not going to crack on me, and I'm still going to get all of these usable feathers for that back section. So tie that stem in. I'm going to get that in the cradle and then try to find my hackle pliers here. So I'm just going to grab this by the tips up here, just using as few as possible to get a good grip, and then make that first wrap. The package side is facing the eye of the hook. I didn't like that wrap right there. There we go. And I'm just going to open loop that all the way to the front. Get a couple clean wraps in there. I'm going to see if I have one more wrap on that plume. I may have one more. There we go. Just work all of those fibers out, and then we'll go and tie this off, get rid of that section right there, and peel these fibers back, and I want to work some thread about halfway back that section. That's just going to give a little bit more security to that hook or to that feather. You get a tooth in there and it's not going to knock it. It's not going to cut through it and unravel your fly for you. So the reason you start this in the back or at the halfway point is you can see how far back those fibers go right there. They're sitting all the way back here. If you start that at the normal spot where we start them, you know, at the ascent of the barb of the hook, your Marabou is going to wind up back here and you're not going to be able to find a flank feather long enough to cover that up. We're going to have a couple of fibers sticking out the back when we tie that flank feather in, but it's just going to be a minimal section right there. If you go, like I said, toward that, if you go further back than the halfway point, you're really going to have a tough time finding a feather to cover that up. So back to another Marabou plume here. Try and find something that's going to work good for us. This seems like it has a nice pliable stem, a lot of working material to it, and it's pretty webby too, so this is going to be a good one for a Palmered wrap. This will take us all the way to the front. We'll only need 2 plumes on this back section. Once again, get that tied in, get it secure. We'll half hitch, get this in the cradle. Grab our pliers again. Just find a couple of feathers up here on the top. Work this around. Package side is facing the eye of the hook. And then just open wraps to the front. And try and get 2 more wraps in there if it'll allow it. Looks like it should. You get 1 more. I don't have a ton of stuff trapped in there. Everything's looking clean. And we'll take this, get rid of that section right there. Our back hook is essentially complete. Get a couple of wraps over top of that, and then I'm just going to go back about 3 to 4 wraps, secure that in place once again, just to give me a little bit more assurance that that isn't going to get a tooth in there, bust up one of the stems, and then unravel the back hook for you. Now we're going to take some flank feathers here. These are just natural mallard flank feathers. That one looks like it might be pretty good right there. If it's long enough. Nope. This is the part of the fly, just like the Cougar. When you're selecting these, this is the most important part of this fly, is selecting good feathers. So take your time, make sure that you get all the qualities that you're after in this, because if not, it's going to track your fly's not going to track properly. So take your time, get the right feather, and your fly will respond how you want. If you look at this one, this is about a perfect flank feather right here. It's nice and straight all the way down. It's even on both sides. It doesn't have a twist or a curl to it. It's pretty aggressive on the cup that it has, but I don't worry about that too awful much. That cup will come out as you're fishing it. So now what I want to do is I just want to lay this over the top. And like I was saying before, you're going to have those couple of fibers that are going to come out just a little bit. It's not going to have an effect on the way that your fly tracks. So I'm going to turn this to the top. You can see where it's laying straight back. Everything's clean on that. I just want to peel this back. And the phone's ringing. Interrupting the video. At least I put it on vibrate. So I want to set this back, like I was saying, right over the top. Get a couple of loose wraps. Make sure that it is sitting right down the center. So you should be able to take and run your finger on that stem and you'll feel that hook as you go back. So everything's nice and clean for us right there. Everything's how we want it. The next thing that I'm going to do is just take and go really secure on that stem. Get that cleaned up really good. Just double check again. Make sure that your flank feather is still going down the side. It didn't twist on you at all. You want to get those loose wraps in there first. Make sure that everything is going the direction that you want it before you secure everything down. If you try and secure everything in the first 2 wraps, what's likely going to happen is it's going to kick to the side on you and you're going to have to back up and repeat. So now I'm going to stand that stem section up. I want to get 1 wrap right in front of it. And get a couple more wraps in front of that. Stand that stem section up and then just go ahead and get rid of it. I'll clean that up with a few wraps and then whip finish. Same thing, 1, 2, 3, whip finish again. Got 1 fiber trap there. And we'll cut that off. I'm going to take a gray marker here and I'm just going to touch up this thread. Make sure that I'm not in the way. Just touch up my thread. You don't really have to do this if you don't want to. You're going to cover up that back section with the front wraps of Marabou, but it's just a habit I've gotten into, so I always do it. Now I want to take my articulation wire right there. And I'm going to throw this down through, get everything how I want it, give that a kink right there. While that's setting, I'm going to get 2 beads. These are just 6/0 red beads from just about any craft store. You'll be able to find those. And that one's all chewed up. That one's junk. There we go. So now we'll take our 2 beads, get our wire where it was kinked, and we'll work these right over the top. Right through there, set this off to the side. We're good to go. Front hook on this one's going to be an MFC 7050. This is a size 2. If you want, you can go up to a size 1 on this. You can drop 2 hook sizes on the back. It's up to you. I'm doing a 2 and a 4 on this one today. If you want 2 and a 6 or a 4 and a 1, whichever you decide, whichever you like the look of. Proportionally speaking, however you like it best. I tend to go with these as a 2 and a 4. So now what I'm going to do is tie in my 100. I'm going to take this and just get a good thread base down. As always, when you're working with the deer hair, whether it's cougar, the fathead, woolly sculpin, whatever it is, give yourself a reference point where you're going to start your deer hair work. Right there's where I'm going to be starting this one. So I'm just going to take and tie this in. I'm not going to allow any material to go past that section right there. So now I want to get my wire here, get everything nice and even. Wires are running parallel. And I'm going to set this in. It's going to go 1, 2, get a couple of good loose wraps. Adjust your wire to where you need it. I want a little bit more length on the back side of this one, so I'm just going to pull this to the back. Just have a couple of loose wraps here. That's about the distance that I want. Make sure that my wire's running to the side. And these are loose wraps, so I'm still able to manipulate that wire if need be. I got a little bit, yeah, I like the length on that one. I'm gonna pull that just slightly forward. You can see the distance that I have. Let me get that in the cradle. You can see the distance that I have behind my two beads right there. It's going to allow for a good tail whip on that. So I usually lengthen these out a little bit more than I have most of the articulated patterns. So now I'm running my wire up to the front, stopping just shy of where I left off, or where I started my thread. And I'm going to double my wire over, take it about to the halfway point, and then just trim that stuff off. So there's 1, 2. Get that out of the way. And I'm going to work my way to the back here. I'm not going the whole way back to the barb of the hook on this one. I'm going to stop right about at the point. And then what I want is probably 3 strands of silver holographic Flashabou. Let me see there. I might have 4. Not the end of the world. So now, yeah, there's a little bit too much in there. Alright, so now what I want to do is just double these over. And I'm going to have this running back into the back section, or the back hook. Even everything up there, give that a quick trim. Wet those fibers. And I'm going to run this in probably a quarter of the way back the front hook. And I just want to tie these in. One's getting away from me there. Just want to tie these in for some internal flash going to that back hook. Flip these around. And then trim that off. There we go. Can divide those up however you want them, but I just want that internal flash going back into the back section of that fly. I got 1 fiber right there that was wanting to fight me some, so we'll get that squared away. You can see the internal flash going to the back there, just going into that back section about a quarter of the way back. So back to our Marabou. Like I said, we're stopping our thread right about at the point of the hook. This one's probably going to take 3 plumes depending on how good, once again, how good of a piece of Marabou you get for your Palmered wraps. I'm going to try and find some that have a lot of working material to them. That way we can do it in 2, but no promises. Once again, trim that up, get that tied into place. Package side is going to be going forward as always. That way your Marabou wraps toward the back and it's not coming forward and fighting you the entire time. Grab our hackle pliers again. Nothing new on these steps right here. This is the same thing as the back hook. Make sure my hand's out of the way, everything's clear. Open wraps to the front. Just preen all that stuff back. Make sure that you don't have anything trapped. And then once again, tie this off. Get out of there. We'll tie that off. Peel these fibers back and we'll go about halfway back that section. I think we're going to be able to get this done in 2. we should be able to get that done in 2. Let me just make sure that I find a good plume here. Oh, that's the ticket right there. That's the ticket. It's nice when things work out like that. It just fell right out of the package and was sitting on the desk. I don't have to do any searching. Very rare. Alright, so now I'm going to work that to the front there. Not going past the reference point that I have tied in, that's going to be the collar and the head. Same thing as the previous 3 plumes of Marabou. Maybe that one's not going to be such a well-behaved feather. Ah, there we go. There we go. Then again, working that to the front, you can go a little bit past your reference point now if you want, because we're going to peel this stuff back like we did with the other ones. Let me get another wrap in there. I didn't like the way that was starting to go. Get that out of the way. Preen these fibers back again, and then we're going to just take that a couple of wraps back, and we still have our original starting point for our thread. So now just get those fibers how we want them sitting, and we're going to take another plume or another mallard flank here. Let's see. Let's try and find one as good for this one as we got for the back. That one's a little chewed up. With this mallard flank, I want it running into, that one would have been good. It was beat up. I want it running into the back flank. So when I measure this out, that one's just a little bit short. I'd like for it to be a little longer, but yeah, I'll find a better one. This is a good example right here of one not to use. I'll just point this out real quick. You can see that stem, it's relatively straight, but this side right here has so much less material than this side. What's going to happen when you're fishing this thing, it's going to kick that direction every time. You can find a better application for that. You can use them for side flanks on a D&D or something along those lines. But for this application, I wouldn't tie that in. Like I said, it's just gonna, there's the same thing on that feather right there. It's just gonna track your fly in the wrong direction. Let me see, we may have a winner here. You got fibers crawling on my face. Yeah, that's looking pretty good right there. That's looking pretty good. You can see that I have that running back into that back mallard flank, and it's going to cover everything up really nice. It's a nice straight feather. It's a clean feather. No twists or turns or anything like that. So now I'm going to take this, get my fibers setting right how I want them. Once again, loose wraps going right down the spine of the hook shank. Just get some nice loose wraps in there. Make sure that everything's clean, everything's how you want it. There you can see our flanks are running right back and they're joining up perfectly. So now I'm going to advance this a little bit forward, and I'm going to really wrench down on this and clamp that into place. There we go. Now we're ready for the deer hair head. So, as almost always, I'm going to switch from the gel spun 100 into a 200. It just gives you a little bit more control, a little bit more you've got a little bit more thread strength. You're able to manipulate that deer hair a little bit easier with this 200. So I want to bring that back just a touch. There we go. Flank feathers are still good. Everything's clean. Now what we're going to do is go into some gray deer hair, and we're going to form our collar. Take that, get a nice heavy section of deer hair for your collar. This is good hair here. There's not a lot of fuzz. Nice section to work with. Everything's pretty clean on that. Drop that into the stacker. Make sure that our tips are nice and even. Drop a couple. As always on these, you want a nice thick heavy collar. There you have it for a reference. The size of the collar that we're after, you can see it up against the body of the fly. I'm going to peel this back so I can find my reference. I want my collar going to between the point and the barb of the hook. Get the distance that you want, transfer hands, and then nice square cut. The only thing that we're using for this hair for is a collar. One clean wrap right on the top. Start working that thread down. A second, and then we'll get a third, and we'll pull that down, and you can see it flare. That hair in the front, the back section stays nice and clean. We have a good collar. Top and bottom, we have the nice half moon that we're looking for. Nothing's interfering with that bottom section. And then I'm just going to run this 200 right through that section of hair. Pulling down, getting it nice and clean, nice tight wraps through there. And like I was saying, we don't have any interference minus a couple of hairs here on that bottom section. There we go. I had a couple that I didn't like there. Spun on me slightly. So, next up on this, we're just going to do this a single color. So we're going to spin 2 sections of deer hair. You could likely get away doing it with just 1 section if you took a thick enough piece, but we're not going to rush through this one. We're going to take the time, not get it real compact, and we're going to do 2 sections here. So I'm going to take and trim off my tips, working with the most hollow section of this bundle of deer hair. I'm going to peel everything back. I hold the deer hair with my pointer and my ring finger. Now you can see how I have that center section, or that center of the bundle. I'm going to go 1, 2, and then my third, I'm just going to pull down, and I get a nice spin of deer hair completely around the hook. I had one, must have skipped off on me, and it got a little bit more of a spin, but we were able to corral it and get it in there. So, nice even distribution the entire way around. We're going to do the same thing right in the front. We're going to take a little bit less deer hair for this one. Get that out of the way. Like I said, just a little bit less. You don't want this so compact to where you're not going to be able to compress these fibers. You're not going to be able, their water's not going to be able to get into or in between the individual fibers. So do not overdress this head when you're tying patterns like this. Cougar, sculpins, whatever it may be. So there you can see again, we have that center bundle, and then I'm just going to pull down and get the nice rotation. I'm going to work through that, standing a few fibers up. I just took a couple of wraps right in front of my tie-in point, just moving that back just enough to where I have my eye clear. 1, 2, get a couple of good wraps in there. Now I'm going to move this out of the way and whip finish. You can see I didn't take a packer, I didn't use anything to force that hair back toward the collar. I have put just enough pressure on it to where I was able to get the eye exposed and clear. We got 1, 2, and get rid of our thread. Last thing that we're going to do on this is shape our head. Just going to take and clean this up. Just fluff out that hair a little bit. Get rid of any stuff that may have been still in there. Cleaned it up pretty good to start, but you never know. There's always some fuzz or something that likes to hang by and ruin the head on that. So, or make it a little bit more difficult, I should say. We're going to start on the bottom on this one. Same as always, same with the Cougar and everything. Just a nice clean section on that bottom. Nice clean flat cut. Working back to the Marabou. As you get closer to the Marabou, you're going to wind up feathering this razor blade a little bit. So you're not nicking any of that and chopping up your body. There we've got the bottom section cut. Everything's clean on that. We're going to take and shape our head now. Nice half moon or half oval. And I'm just pushing this right toward the tips of the deer hair. Just getting my first overall shape. I'll come through and fine tune this after I get the initial cut. The blade's got a dull spot in the center. And I'm looking at this from an odd direction so I don't block that camera. So it's a little tough for me to get it exactly how I want it. There we go. You can see where we're getting the shape that we want. There's still some fibers on the top that, well, there's some fibers right here where there's a dull section on this blade. I just needed to readjust how I was looking at it. Work those in there. All right. Now you can see we're going to take this out of the vise and we're going to trim this head section. We're going to get our shape that we want right here. I'm just going to cut that against the grain to get a little bit of a wedge. Don't get real aggressive because this is a spot where you can ruin this head with one cut. There's no putting deer hair back on if you get too aggressive. There we go. Everything's starting to take shape for us. There we go. You can see that nice even section on both sides. And then the half moon collar is exposed on the back. We're going to take and trim this up just a little bit more. There's some stuff underneath that's impeding the body slightly. So we're just going to take and trim that up. But for the most part, this is all fine tuning from here on out. I'm going to take and feather some of this stuff that's going into the collar. I just want to work that back. I don't want it as a nice clean break. I'm just going to feather that into the collar so you can see when I let that go, it just kind of fades right into our collar. There's not a nice clean break right there. It looks like a natural transition the entire way through. And then I'll do the same thing on this side. I'm going to peel my collar out of the way, put my thumbnail right up against this, and I'm just brushing this blade right through it. That way, once again, I'm easing that transition from the head to the collar. Same thing, there's not a clean break right there from the head to the collar, but I've got different lengths and everything to where it just looks really seamless, so to speak. I'm going to feather this stuff on the underneath side as well. Just working that right through, just cleaning some of those fibers up. Get rid of a couple of those. Yeah, there's a couple right there that need to go. If you take and run this right into your thumbnail, it's not really going to mess anything. It's not going to hurt anything. It's not like you're going to nick you're not going to take your razor blade and, have a gash through your thumb. If you take it into your thumbnail, if you're just going soft with it, if you're just feathering right through, if you nick it a few times, you're not going to feel anything. If you're, one of these ones that likes your manicures and pedicures, whatever it may be, probably not going to want to do that. But if you're like me and you don't give a shit how your fingernails look or how busted up your hands are, it's a good option, and it's a clean way to clean up the collar and the head on this. But anyhow, enough of that. I'm going to adjust these flank feathers here a little bit so you can get an idea of what we're looking at on this top section. There we go. We've got the nice clean. Let me just rotate this a little bit if I can, if it'll let me. There we go. We've got that nice clean mallard flank section. The front is running right into the back. It's nice and even. It's going the entire way back. We've got the half moon collar that we're after. The head's trimmed up good, except that was bugging me. The head's trimmed up. We've got the overall section, or the overall shape that we're after. Could bring it down just slightly, but I think I'm going to let that go. And then the underneath side is nice and flush. It's even. The body is exposed underneath. Right there, we've got a finished Heifer Groomer. Give that one more spin right there. We'll bring that around and bring this back. But there you have it. There is Kelly Galloup's Heifer Groomer. If you guys have questions or comments, leave them with me and I'll get back to you. But thanks as always for watching, and we'll catch you on the next fly.